Hello and welcome to this, the sixth and final video in the University of Auckland's six-part video series on Nectar onboarding. This video series is intended as a hands-on guide to getting you up and running with a remote Windows virtual machine on the University of Auckland's Nectar infrastructure. In the previous 5 videos, we've covered the steps required to create and configure a remote Windows virtual machine. This video, we will cover the steps required to log in so that you can access your remote virtual machine from a local computer. In this video, we'll be covering the steps required to log in using Windows 10. A separate video will be provided for logging in using an Apple Macintosh. However, that video will not have any narration and is recommended that you watch this video and then follow the steps that are presented in the Macintosh specific video. As with all of these videos in this series, I'd like to point out some of the details are specific to the University of Auckland. And if you are using this video series on a different Nectar node, I would once again suggest that you check with your local node before following these instructions exactly as presented. Having said that, it's now time to jump to the dashboard. So I shall see you momentarily. And we're here. As you can see, the list of instances has changed somewhat since our previous video. This is a test environment that I'm working in, and the instances that are created and deleted vary from day to day. Importantly, however, our video test instance is still present. And the reason that we have come to the dashboard is because we need to know this number, the IP address, which is the unique address that our remote virtual machine has on the internet. In order to access our virtual machine, we need to use a different software package. On Windows 10, we're going to use the remote desktop connection. On a Macintosh, this is the Microsoft Remote Desktop Connection. To find that, we can use the Windows 10 search button, come down to the bottom left-hand side. It's normally found next to the Windows Start button. If we click and then type remote, the Remote Desktop Connection app should be found by your local machine. And we can click to run that. At this point, I'd like to point out that if you're using the University of Auckland Nectar infrastructure, you'll need to be connected to the University VPN. This can be done using the FortiClient VPN client, and it's beyond the scope of this video to cover installation and configuration of that, but that information is available through Connect IT. When we first start the remote desktop connection, we see a relatively small window with only one field that we can access, which is the computer. I have previously connected to this remote virtual machine, so the app has pre-filled the last IP address that I connected to. When you run this for the first time, this field will be blank, and under new username, there will be none selected. Now, this set of options is too limited for us to connect the way that we would like to connect. So, in order to see a more complete list of options, we need to come to the Show Options button, select that, And now we can see that we're given the option of entering a username. The username that we enter here is the username for the user that we created when we configured Windows. I would also like to be able to access my local hard drive. The reason I want to be able to do that is so that I can move data from my local hard drive to the remote virtual machine and vice versa. In order to do that, I should come to the Local Resources tab in the top of the window, and then come down to the Local Devices and Resources block near the bottom. When you first run this, both the printers and the clipboard will be selected. The printer in question is a local printer, and this will allow you to carry out an analysis on your remote virtual machine and print a hard copy in your home office or work office. This is not something that I want to do for this particular case, so I have deselected printers. Keeping the clipboard selected will allow you to use copy and paste between your local machine and the remote virtual desktop. And this is bidirectional, so you will be able to both copy from your local machine and paste to the remote machine, as well as copying from the remote machine and pasting to your local machine. As I mentioned previously, I would also like to be able to access my hard drive from my local machine on the remote virtual desktop. And that way I can move data files around so that I can take the data from my local computer and move it to the remote virtual machine, and that way I can do the analysis that I need to do. Likewise, when I've completed that analysis, it means I'll be able to easily move the results from the remote virtual machine back to my local hard drive. To do that, I need to click the More button, which will open a new window. Now, I've already preset this for the drives. What you would expect to see when you first started, if you had not previously connected, is that this would look essentially like it does here. Clicking on the plus icon next to drives would show you the drives that you have available. And then you can select which of those drives should be visible on the remote machine. So I have selected the local disk, which is my local hard disk. And I've also selected the devices that I plug in later. And this will allow me to connect an external hard drive or a USB key and have that drive appear on my remote desktop. So I'm happy with those choices. I can click OK. And now I've set everything up the way I want it. I can now click to connect. Once again, remember you need to be on the VPN in order to do this. This now presents me with a warning message, which asks me if I trust this remote connection. This provides you with an opportunity just to check to make sure that the remote computer that you're connecting to has the same IP address as the instance that you have created. It is safe to click connect once you are satisfied that these two IP addresses are the same, because you will be connecting to a remote virtual machine that you have set up and configured. So you know what is happening on both of those machines. So click connect. Now I'm presented with an opportunity to enter my password for the username that I have created. So I enter the Windows password that I set up in the previous video, and then click OK. And I get another warning message, which is telling me that the identity of the remote computer cannot be verified. This is because I haven't set up an SSL certificate on the remote computer. And again, this is a warning that because I am connecting to a machine that I know and trust, I'm happy to allow that connection to continue. So I will click the yes. And this brings us to our remote machine. You can see from the logo at the bottom here that I'm on a Windows Server 2012 machine. I have access to RStudio, to Spider, and to the Jupyter Notebook that I had previously when I logged in through the console. If I go to Google Chrome, I can do a web search which shows that I have access to the internet from my remote virtual machine. And if I go to the File Explorer, I can see that I have the two drives that I had set up previously. So here is my base Windows drive, and here is the data drive that we configured in a previous video. Because I have allowed the remote machine access to my local hard drive, there is a third drive available, which has the remote internet connected network drive icon. This, if I double click on it, takes me to the root directory of my local hard drive. I can now, if I hold the shift button down and open another Explorer window, drag and drop a file from my local computer to the remote computer. In this case, I need to provide administrator permissions because the file is an administrator file on my local computer. I can continue, come down to the administrator account. Okay. And now I have moved that file across. If I double click on the local drive version and the remote drive version, I can see that these two versions contain the same information. So I have indeed copied across the file from my local computer to the remote computer. One thing to bear in mind with that is that you are copying the file across the internet. So depending on your access speed, you may see a delay before that file can be opened, so it needs to be transferred. At this point, we now have a fully working Windows virtual machine that we can access from our local machine, move data across, and start our analysis. When we're finished on the analysis, if we click the Windows button, come up to the power options and select disconnect, this will close the connection and return us to our local machine. This brings us to the end of our video series. I hope these videos have been useful. If you encounter any difficulty with these and are based at the University of Auckland, please contact the Centre for E-Research and we will be able to help you get set up and connected. I hope this video series has been useful. I'd like to thank you for spending the time to go through this with me.